Speaker Boehner say, all right, I'm open to revenues, i.e. tax increases on the rich. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. The Speaker apparently is looking at a middle ground here that would not raise the top rate, but would remove a lot of very popular deductions, maybe limit those deductions for upper-income folks. But there is a distinct possibility here in this zeal to avoid the tax rate going up that Republicans might end up having the rich pay more by so torpedoing allowances and special breaks. The rich paid more than they would have if the top rate went back up to 39.6% as it was under Bill Clinton. Americans for Tax Reform Director Mattie Duppler and the Wall Street Journal senior economics writer, best-selling author Steve Moore. Mattie, that's my fear here, that because they don't want to cave on a headline like tax rate goes up, they're going to actually hurt the rich more. What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you this, Neil. It's not just that Republicans are going to be steadfast on their acclamations that we're not going to see any rate hikes. We're also not going to see any tax hikes in forms of elimination of deductions and credits for two reasons. When you've got Speaker Boehner talking about being open to new revenue, we're talking about different things other than eliminating loopholes and deductions. We're talking about revenues from economic growth. You know, CBO tells us that even just 1% of economic growth, and again, we've seen this dismal growth over the past couple of years, just 1 percentage point more in economic growth would give you $280 billion, $2.8 trillion in new revenues.
You're preaching quiet.
I know, so that's very easy. But the other side,
your definition of growth, and I'll let you finish that, but I want to be clear.
Sure.
Your definition of growth, which is a sound one, isn't the president's definition of growth. And I think he wants that proverbial tax rate or tax hike head on a platter. That's what he wants.
Well,
go ahead.
Let's be real clear, though, about what the president actually wants, because when he talks about raising taxes on millionaires, he's not talking about raising taxes on millionaires. He's talking about raising taxes on small business owners, and we know that by looking at his own budget plan. He wants to raise taxes on the top two marginal rates, and the majority of small business owners are paying in those rates because they're paying through the personal side of the tax code.
Well,
so
they say it's 3%.
He's talking about small business owners and employers.
They say it's 3%, but it works out to half the revenue in the small business world and almost half the hiring. But your point is well taken. Steve, what do you make of that?
You know, you know me, Neil. I hate rate increases because I think they do significant damage to the economy. And, you know, the truth is I do want the rich to pay more taxes. I want them to pay more taxes because they're making more money, and everybody's making more money. And when everybody makes more money, they pay more taxes. And, you know, we've had a 50-year low in taxes as a share of GDP, Neil. And that's because this economy has been so lousy for such a long time. So my first priority is to make sure those rates on capital gains and dividends and small businesses don't go up, because I think it's a killer.
Well, they are.
You know, would I go to the mats on eliminating some deductions? Probably not. I hate deductions anyway. I'd get rid of, you know me, I'm a tax guy. Get rid of all the deductions, every one of them.
Mattie, here's my fear. That Republicans, so cowed by this election, I don't know why, to the degree they are, they're already compromising on immigration reform and all. It's like you would think they were blown out in the election. I'm not saying they didn't lose, they did. I'm not saying in the electoral contest they did. I'm saying the popular vote, it was close to even. So they lost an election, and then now they seem to have lost a backbone. What is that all about?
Well, and this is why I am not particularly concerned about what's coming down the pipe in terms of the fiscal cliff, because you're right. You know, there's a lot of melancholy among Republicans as to what happened in the election, but what we've seen is an affirmation of just what happened in 2010. You know, they still have the Senate, they still have the White House. We have a very strong chorus of Republicans in the House, and we saw going in 2010, 2011, the president making these same claims. I'm going to raise taxes only on people making over $250,000 a year. I want to see the rich pay more. I'm not going to sign into law any tax relief that allows the rich to not pay more taxes. All of that was false. He did exactly that, extended the Bush tax cuts, and I think we'll see him do it again. So I don't think conservatives need to be too concerned. All they need to do is hold the line both on rates and deductions.
I love you dearly, but he came after an election here where he feels that he's the guy who won. He's not about to back down on this.
But Neil, we have Senate Democrats who are up next year. The Senate's not going to let him back down on this. Now, they might be afraid about 2 years from now overdoing it, but when you had Patty Murray Washington, and Steve will raise this point with you, saying out loud, we would go ahead and risk and have the whole thing go kablooey on the cliff and then put the pieces back together in the new year. And
I think that's telling you a lot right there.
I don't think they're quite that brave. I think we've got 20 Democrats coming up in 2014 that are going to see a problem with that.
All right. Steve?
I mean, I think that the problem, look, I agree, and I think that, you know, I don't want to see any tax increase. But the problem, Neil, is just the real world is all those taxes go up on January 1st unless some action is taken. And so that does give the president strategically a little bit of an upper hand. I just want to see the rates stay where they are, and I think it's really important for Republicans to double down on being the growth party, to continue to promote pro-economic growth policies.
Well, you better talk to them, Steve, because they're afraid of their shadow right now, and I'm wondering whether the president knows that, and I'm thinking, you know, the president, I think, does aspire maybe, and this is the term, as you and I were discussing election night with Lou Dobbs, he maybe to his higher or better angels, and that he wants to be a different type of president. Every president in his second term does. I don't see that yet.
I don't either, Neil. I mean, I was very disappointed with his speech that he gave on Friday, which was very in your face, a little arrogant, saying, I won, the voters have spoken, they want my policies. So there was no olive branch whatsoever there. And, you know, I did this interview with Mitch McConnell this weekend for the Wall Street Journal. The Republicans have said, they basically said, look, we'll be a little bit flexible on the revenues, but we're not going to raise those rates. This is going to be World War III if he goes forward and tries to raise those rates on capital gains, dividends, and personal income. And that's not the way to start the second term of a presidency, because there's already such bad blood. It's even going to be, it's even going to get worse if the president moves forward with this.
Well, Mattie, I think capital gains and dividend taxes are going to go up. I think they might find a saving face to get out of the rate increase, to both of your points. But Mattie, I also fear they're going to push this close to the end of the year, and this could blow up on both parties. What do you think?
Well, I don't think it's going to blow up, but I'm not booking my tickets home for Christmas, that's for sure. I think we will push it up until the very last point that you can. But again, we saw this back in 2010 when the president needed to extend the 0103 rates then, and he signed it into law at the end of the day. So, you know, I think you're right to worry about capital gains and dividends. We do have the surtax on investment coming from the health care law that we need to be very concerned about and be thinking about as we're talking about rates at all, whether they're the 0103 extension or what's coming down the pipe in Obamacare. But again, I think that we have good Republicans with good heads on their shoulders who see that a rate increase is not going to happen, but we're also not going to be looking at deductions and credits, because eventually down the road, that's going to take the space away from us to be able to lower rates even more.
Do you think that cooler heads prevail? Because I don't see it, Steve. I see them running around like Barney Fife.
I think the president, it's like a religion for the left. Those rates have to go up. I think, Neil, I hate to say this, but I think a lot on the left would want to raise those rates even if they knew it was going to harm the economy.
I think you're right.
And even if they knew it was going to, because it's an article of faith with these guys, and that's why it's going to be a big battle. But don't forget, Republicans do have one card that they can play if they've got the guts to do it, and that is to go forward with these spending cuts. I mean, my goodness, the Republicans are supposed to be the party of limited government and less spending. You know, what's wrong with a 5 or 6 or 7 or 8% cut back in all of these government programs? That's scheduled under current law.
100% agree with Steve.
Well, Mattie, that's a multi-trillion-dollar game of chicken.
No, it's good for the economy. It's not bad for the economy.
Let's get rid of some of this government spending.
Cut government spending.
Okay. Yeah. You both seem upset. Guys, thank you.
But we agree, so it's okay.
There we go. That's all right. That's all right.